Welcome back to Talkin' Shit, where we are talking all sorts of shit. Schitt's Creek, that is. I'm Jess Sterling. And of course, as always, I am joined by someone who loves a Hawaiian-themed barbecue. Stuart, how are you?
I'd love it if I got to eat those ribs. They looked incredible.
Okay, we were less than a minute
Already
into the
into it.
podcast. Do you eat ribs in the UK? Is this like a common thing? Like, I know barbecue isn't like a big thing over there.
So, butchery is slightly different here in the UK, where we don't favour rib cuts, but we do ribs, like and they are delicious. We all love ribs, but it's not quite the barbecue
They're
culture
not
over here.
slathered in barbecue sauce, because that's the only way I want to eat ribs.
Really? Do you not want them
Yeah,
to
I
get
don't
like
want a
really,
dry
really
rub.
crispy? Oh
No,
no.
I want them sloppy as fuck. I just want them sloppy. That's all I want is a sloppy rib. And the thing is, though, Stuart, what do you even eat on the side of them? Because I messaged you the other day and I said, do you all eat like potato salad and all these like summer quote unquote salads that don't have lettuce, but they're salads? And you were like, we don't do like mayo based salads.
Yeah, potato salad is a thing. It's just not a huge thing. But like, why waste space with salad when you could have like more chicken wings, more sausages, more burgers?
Because sometimes you want like something other than protein, you know.
I feel so bad for any vegetarians listening to this.
Sorry, vegetarians. But we're not alone for this episode. We are joined by someone who may have had too much grass last night. JD, how are you?
Blippity blop, blippity blip.
Oh, welcome to the podcast. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here to talk. To talk any sort of shit, but especially this episode.
Yeah, it was so funny, JD, because when we were chatting about which episode you wanted to come on for, I believe we landed on this episode for a different reason. And then when I watched the episode, I was like, this is literally like you couldn't have picked a better episode for JD to guess for.
Yeah, it just kept like getting better and better. I think I just like because I didn't remember the first season of the series anymore. I think I watched it I watched it when it first came out, and I might have rewatched it like I've certainly rewatched it like during the original run of the series. But like it's been a while and my memory is trash. So I was just looking it up, and I think the thing that it said was in the description it gave like the part about Roland and Jocelyn smoking at a party, and I was like, oh, I mean, spoiler alert, I like smoking.
Spoiler alert for JD's life.
Spoiler alert for my life. Yeah. And yeah, so I was like, oh, that's cool. And then like I watched the episode and had the great, the wine not the label sort of thing. And it just kept getting better and better.
Yeah, and for those who are watching us on YouTube, which you could do, search Talking Shit on YouTube. JD has the pansexual flag hanging in the background of their video, which couldn't be more appropriate for today.
And genuinely a coincidence. It's just the thing that is there in my room, and I didn't even think about it until I loaded up this video call right now, saw it over my shoulder, and went, "Oh yeah, that's appropriate." Yeah, that works out nicely.
Yeah. Anything that you want to mention about your time watching Schitt's Creek, JD? Were you an original watcher? Obviously, worth saying you're Canadian, so this is from your land.
Yeah, I am from the land of the shit. And I think I can't remember if I watched it immediately from the premiere or not, but it was definitely pretty early on. And watching it like tuning in weekly on CBC was a thing that I did. And actually, to that point, do you all watch it? Is it on Netflix for y'all?
Over here it is.
Yeah. I believe so. I think it's moved around a bit. Like I want to say I originally watched it on Netflix. Yes.
Yeah, because I think it might have been on Netflix even here at one point, but now I went to look for it, and the only place it is in Canada is on CBC Gem, which is free. Go public broadcasting, I suppose. But so it was weird I do have the CBC Gem app on my TV, do not use it, as you might imagine, for any Canadians who watch. The thing about contextually with like Schitt's Creek, when it came out, Canadian TV shows were not of this quality. Like a fully Canadian TV show, the way that this was sort of like made originally, I think, was just not like this quality. And like the people involved in it obviously are that quality. And maybe at a time, in the 80s, Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara, I think, were both on SCTV, which was some quality Canadian programming, but the quality has kind of fallen off since then. So it was surprising that this was so good. And then when it like started to get American attention too,
because it didn't jump on my radar until a few seasons in. Like it was at least 3 or 4 seasons, and I might have been someone in our Pusher Recaps community. Maybe did I watch it before then? I can't remember, because I obtained a lot of Canadian friends that way. And people listen, I love my Canadian friends because they love being Canadian and telling you about Canada. Like they have a lot of pride, and so you learn a lot, right? Like you learn to somehow convert Fahrenheit to Celsius, or at least give yourself a general idea of how to do that. And you also learn about Schitt's Creek. The
thing about the Canadian identity is that it isn't there. It's like, it's maybe, I think a lot of us maybe have a tough time kind of pinpointing what the Canadian identity is. So we'll dig in like real hard on whatever pieces that we can find. And a lot of times, frankly, that's just like not America in this way. And it doesn't say if it's better or worse. It's just not. But we'll dig into that, and we put cheese curds on our gravy and fries.
Yeah. Cheese curds are incredible.
The worst part about cheese curds is honestly the name, I think.
See, I think the squeakiness is my least favorite part, but that's like it's a textural thing, like it's kind of, I can get over it. Unlike the sound of styrofoam, I can get over cheese curds because I love cheese.
Well, you compare it to styrofoam, okay, it's not that great, but like a squeaky halloumi.
I love halloumi. Oh my God. I had halloumi for the first time not that long ago, and it was a revelation.
Yeah.
So good. But anyway, we're getting off track. We're here to talk about Schitt's Creek, Season 1, Episode 10, Honeymoon. Let's jump into a quick little recap, and then we'll dive deep into this episode. Yeah. It's party time. Ted and Alexis are hosting an exclusive dinner party for couples so that Ted can get to know her friends. They invite Twyla and Mutt because we needed the awkward dinner chat, and David and Stevie because word has gotten around that they slept together the night before. Things don't go as planned because Ted seems fixated on a conversation that Mutt and Alexis had while in community service. Meanwhile, David and Stevie are trying to figure out what their sexual escapades the night before mean for their friendship. David clarifies his sexuality with an incredible analogy to wine that we will definitely be talking about. And they decide to have casual sex for the sake of proficiency. They get caught by Moira and Johnny, who are returning from Jocelyn and Roland's Hawaiian party, where they imbibed a bit too much in some grass, as Moira puts it. The two are determined to expand their social circle after getting shamed by their children for focusing too much on them. We also get a peek into Moira's past, as it turns out she's from a small town just like Schitt's Creek. Stuart, were you surprised to hear this from Moira?
Absolutely not. Like, Moira is, I think, going to be this cliche of a movie star. And I think it's going to be small town girl, gets like the break in Hollywood, gets out there, becomes like this kind of like soap actress, and then the career slowly dwindles and things like that. I'm here for Moira's kind of journey pre Schitt's Creek to be very cliche, because I love the fact that like they might play into it and things. But hearing that she was from a small town and like kind of has this place clocked doesn't really surprise me, because although there was the freak out really early on, and like obviously because her life had just been destroyed, she's kind of in some ways acclimatized better than some others. I'm not saying that she's doing great, but I'm saying that in some respects, she's actually doing not too bad. And I think it's because she kind of knows what to expect.
Yeah, GD, I found this conversation especially interesting because Jocelyn comes from the perspective of, why would you ever leave? Like, that sounds wonderful. Why would you ever leave that small town? And Moira comes from the perspective of, I could not wait to get out. And so in some ways, she knows how to operate within a system like that because she's used to it, unlike, her children who've only known fame and fortune.
Yeah. And I come from a small town, not maybe like Schitt's Creek, but not as far away from it as I probably would like to think. Like I grew up in a town, like outside of a town actually, of about 8,000 people. And I'm rounding up, actually it was 7,500 when I was a kid. It's 8,500 now, so I
Whoa.
kind of go to 8,000. The closest city was an hour away. Like that, like the town I grew up in was the biggest place within an hour drive. And on it, like, it's weird because I didn't want to leave until I knew what else existed. Like when I think I didn't really even, I went away to college after spending like 2 years after high school in town, and I just kind of didn't like working just at McDonald's, so I decided to leave to go to college. So I went to a city, but it wasn't until I still intended to like come home that summer, for example. I never ended up going back. I never ended up moving back home. I lived in that city for 15 years after that. But it was like, you don't know until you know, and then you can't imagine going back to the small place.
Yeah. And I grew up in a fairly small town, I'd say. Not as small as like a Schitt's Creek, right? Like everybody doesn't know everybody, but small enough. And there is that vibe of like, you feel a little stuck at times, right? Like how do you go about leaving? And Moira's way out was through, like, she met Johnny and, she got an acting jobs and she found her way out. And I don't think she ever expected to find herself back in this situation. But Stuart, I love how Moira adapts, right? Like Joyra, wow, Johnny and Moira, Joyra, they really get the handed to them by their children when Alexis is like, you're focused far too much on us and you need to like get a life and do something. It's like, so Moira takes it upon herself to invite the Schitts over to their table, because let's face it, like, those are kind of their only friends right now.
Yeah. That's a sad reality, isn't it? When you kind of look over, like Jocelyn, you look over and you see her and you think, okay, things aren't that bad. Jocelyn's a lovely person, rapidly becoming my favorite character in this entire show. But then you also just have to contend with the fact that with Jocelyn comes Roland, and you don't necessarily want to attach yourself to that. But even then, like, they're having fun in the town. They're putting on a soiree. They're inviting everyone but the Roses. Like, they seem to be the cool kids in town in terms of like that kind of generation.
Yeah, exactly. Like okay. So maybe if you took them out of Schitt's Creek and put them in a popular city, like a New York City or LA or something, they're like an LA 2 or a New York City 2, but they're like a Schitt's Creek 8. Like everyone wants to hang out with them, imagine they throw an annual Hawaiian barbecue with like a pig roast, that sounds really fun. So of course they're going to feel a little bit left out. And I know they say like, oh, the reason we didn't invite you, we didn't think, we thought you were a little too high class for this sort of
too
party.
Hoity-toity, yeah.
Yes, a little too hoity-toity. JD, I love that they show up in all white ensembles for this party.
Absolutely tremendous. And look, it is easy to be kind of a small town 8, the mayor of my town when I was growing up was also concurrently, while he was mayor, the butcher at the local grocery store.
Incredible.
This is how easy it is to be. And he was the mayor for a long, long time. And then I think he was not mayor for a while. And then I think he was just the butcher at the grocery store. And then he just got reelected mayor at some point, like later in my life again. Like just an incredibly popular person through. So like, basically, I guess that seeing Roland as like popular, being, just by virtue of being the mayor, basically, is not super surprising, and seeing the Schitts walk into this party with absolutely no idea, or the Roses, I'm sorry, walk into the party with no idea what to expect. I mean, that was the theme, I guess, of the episode, right? People walking into parties in unexpected ways.
Yeah. And I love, so Roland, he pulls out a joint and he's just like, listen, Roses, I don't know if you party, and I love the humble brag, or I guess maybe it's just a brag, Stuart, of Moira saying like, well, we had friends in the FDA, and it's like,
you know that they were connected. Like,
Yeah.
they turned up to a white party. I think they were expecting some white.
But they party because when Johnny takes the joint and he he takes a puff and then he like blows it into Moira's mouth.
Straight
in
for the blowback. They're like pros at this. Yeah.
Yeah, they know
meanwhile,
what's
you've
up.
got Jocelyn being like sparking up Rolly as if she's like such a badass. He's like, oh, Jocelyn, this is your one night a year to cut loose. I love it.
She says, I'll fire up the cheese fountain.
Yeah.
Say that again? What? A cheese fountain? Is this like a chocolate fountain? Like, I
imagine it's one of those like fondue like chocolate fountains. It's just
they love fondue in that household.
Oh,
really love a melted cheese. Yeah.
Now, here's the thing I have to confess. Well, a couple things. One, because I need to clarify. It's legal now in Canada. I don't think it was at the time that they like made the show, as they were referencing it was illegal.
Right.
Although I don't know, has the show ever been... The show isn't explicitly set in Canada, is it?
They never really say.
Right.
Like, there's
it's just
some
kind of
assumptions
somewhere
being made, but it's very vague for a reason. Yeah.
So that's cool. But so when I was watching this episode, I may have partook at the same time as the Roses did. And I gotta tell you, at that moment, whatever a cheese fountain was sounded like a great idea.
There you go. Makes perfect sense.
So, I think it all made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. And I think it is the grass, as Moira calls it, that does loosen them up a bit. And it leads to some really interesting conversations. We kind of already spoke about the Moira Jocelyn conversation, but we also have a conversation between Johnny and Roland, where earlier in the episode, Johnny discovers that Stevie and David have slept together, and he's kind of battling Stuart in his own mind with like, what does this mean about David's sexuality? Like, I thought maybe he thought he was gay, and now he's like, wait a minute, what? Like, life would be so much easier for him if he just picked a lane and stuck to it. And surprisingly, we get the most wise and deep comment from Roland about like, you got to just let people love who they want to love.
Roland, I want to forgive him for all of his slights, just for that kind of like sage bit of wisdom there, because it's entirely true. Like, this isn't like quite a trope in media, and it's also an actual thing that happens with parents of queer kids, is that their internalized homophobia is projected through a sense of protection and being like, you don't want to pick that life. It's a lonely life. It's a dangerous life. It's like all these things that they're like warning signs, and it comes out from like, oh, I'm just wanting the best for them. And it's like, no, that's just you having something internalized that you need to like deal with and rectify. And like Johnny around him has people telling him positive things that are trying to like kind of get him through that mindset. Like you got Moira earlier on saying, Johnny, it's not a phase. Reminding him it's not a phase. It's just how David is. And I think for in that conversation, having the mind expanded through the weed, having Roland, of all people, delivering that sage bit of advice, it's like a good moment with Johnny, because Johnny actually listens. Maybe he's kind of like the weed and the ribs have calmed him down and maybe get into him for the first time, but he seems to almost like take it in, which I was really happy to see.
The cheese fountain might have had something to do with it too. It was just off screen.
Cheese and ribs. Oh,
yeah.
Cheese and ribs. Yeah.
Yeah, I love how we end the episode with Johnny saying to David, I mean, like very awkwardly and like, this isn't the way to do it. But the way he says, like, I'd be, I love that you're sleeping with a girl, but if you wanted to sleep with a guy, I'm also cool with that. Like David doesn't want to be having
in front of Stevie though. Also,
yeah. You're a lovely girl, bit of an edge, but it's growing on me. Yeah, Johnny is just so sweet in the way that like JD, it's so obvious that he's not malicious with any of his thoughts. Like Stuart was saying, it's very like internalized. It's societal. It's, you know, it's the society, what they have, like what society has taught him. But I love that you could see him trying to work through it in his mind, and like, cause he loves his son and he wants to be supportive. And this is the one thing that this show, it has so much heart, and we've seen a little bit of it, like glimpses of it. We're not fully there yet, but it has so much heart. And in my opinion, as we go through the series, a lot of that is due to Johnny.
Yeah, actually, that makes a lot of sense. Because like the thing that you said that he he said that he was making an okay point, but going about it maybe not the right way. That's kind of the theme of Johnny, I think, right?
Yeah.
And it is lovely, like that he is able to kind of, I guess sometimes like he can be like the person, the audience, the avatar, I guess, sort of thing around some of the issues, you know, some of the complicated issues, as it were, that maybe are more like common to young people like David and Alexis, but are confusing to old people. And it is like really fun to see Roland like have a moment of clarity, and it's not like this changes who Roland is or anything. It's just he's a mess in a lot of ways, and in this one way he's like, oh no, that one's easy for me. I know that, just let people love who they love. You know, but then goes back to being the mess that Roland is.
Well, because they definitely could have gone the common tropey sort of like, oh, he's from a small town, he's probably small-minded, like very rednecky sort of guy. And instead they allow him to be, no, he has like a big heart, and he's just like, what do I care? Like, he's very open-minded, which was really refreshing to see, Stuart, that like that is what we got. That is what this show is able to offer us, instead of the very common stereotypical stuff that a lot of shows do.
Yeah, and I like, not to put Roland on such a pedestal here, he does make the absolute ham-fisted pansexual typical joke about cookware fetishes, which I rolled my eyes at so hard, because I was like, of course he's going to make that joke.
Of course.
Roland. But but then it's a testament to these characters being not extremely complex, but complex enough that they have different facets to them beyond these cliches that you would expect. And we get this with a number of different characters. Like, I was really worried last week that perhaps we might have a very kind of tropey situation going on with the kind of like David and Stevie situation after it, and whether or not it would go down that kind of like awkwardness and things. But we saw complexity there with Stevie and their whole relationship, and how that has kind of evolved even over this episode, which this show is just so good for these little touches of just class and quality, which I adore. These really begin to love this show.
Beginning, please.
I know.
Yeah, let's talk about David and Stevie. Because, you know, the end of last episode, they slept together and they kind of left it on a cliffhanger. We weren't really sure where it was going to go, and things are a little awkward between them in this episode at the start, right? Like, they don't know what to do. They don't really know how to act around one another. And then they're roped into going to this freaking dinner party where it's even more awkward, because everyone knows they slept together and they don't even know necessarily what it means. And JD, I really love that it ends up being that like Stevie was basically acting like she was all pissed off just to get them out of the dinner party. And then it's like, no, like, calm down. I'm fine.
Yeah, I had forgotten even that was like that was the twist, as it were, when I was watching it. And so yeah, so when she like the reveal was fresh for me too, and I was like, oh, of course, that is so perfectly actually Stevie, rather like just taking that trope and being like, no, I was just doing the things because didn't you want to leave, like and then it made me start to think like what lengths I would go to get out of a dinner party or some other like uncomfortable situation.
I feel like bathroom issues is such an easy go-to, but it's like also a little embarrassing. Like, how shameless are you? You know, I think that's the question. Like, if it was really that bad, though.
I was gonna say, this is probably a really poor advice I had from my current boss, who was like, I don't know why people give really bad excuses when calling in sick to work. Just phone up and say you've got the shits. And I was like, what the hell? He's like, no one's ever going to question it. Problem is people
No.
have shame and then they don't want to give the like good
No
excuse.
one wants info.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the
Mhm.
same thing as like if you have like female reproductive organs and you're just like, sorry, got problems, you know? Like it's going to get you out of things. I've said the same thing about having pets, having children. They're great excuses to get out of anything you don't want to be involved in. But yeah, I love Stevie's approach here. And we also get one of the most influential scenes in probably all of Schitt's Creek, I would have to say, in this wine conversation that we have between David and Stevie, where David says, I like the wine, not the label. And this is huge, Stuart, because in terms of the meta of the show, Dan Levy often says that like this is one of the things that people point to the most when they meet him, like fans. They will say, I used this conversation as a way to come out to my parents or, you know, whomever. Like I used this exact analogy and it worked. And it's like so perfect. It's so beautiful. And it's like so easy. So it makes a ton of sense why this particular scene would stick with people and that people would use this as a way to explain sexuality to others.
It's such a like shame that it took us until Schitt's Creek to get a decent explanation of this without it being some over like melodrama kind of like portrayal of like a big coming out and stuff. It's just two friends having a very kind of frank conversation with a very good kind of metaphor. And the wine just it's just so good. And it's like you can see it's such a great quotable line. It's like, I like the wine, not the label. Does that make sense? Like it's just nice and simple. It's not kind of putting it out there as this kind of like giant leap of just, oh, well, what if and stuff. It's like it's so obvious and kind of beautiful in the same way. And I can see why this has stuck as a line to many people and why it kind of means a hell of a lot. But I think the thing I'm just taken aback by is just how refreshing it is to have this as a portrayal in media and things. And for it to not be addressed, like it was so refreshing that this came first and then the corny Roland's cookware joke comes later. Like, because it's kind of like you've settled in and you realize that this show is an ally to that kind of lifestyle, that kind of like who you are. And it's not going to ever poke fun at it, but it's going to poke fun with it, with those kind of like things, because Roland is the one that's the butt of that joke in that scenario, which is why I think it was just set up perfectly. No notes. Dan Levy, hot marks.
Yeah, he's a genius.
My MVP
right?
to the writer.
JD, the thing I love most about it is like how efficient it is in terms of an explanation. Yeah. Like, I like red wine. I also like white wine. Sometimes I sample a rosé, you know? Like, it's so simple. It's so efficient. People understand it. Everyone knows they're two different, like there's a red wine, there's a white wine, and occasionally there's a rosé. It's so easy to understand, and I absolutely adore it for that reason.
Yeah, and then in case anybody missed it, then they have Johnny explain it later, you know, in super explicit terms, but still funny without like feeling like you're getting hit over the head with it in the episode. Because I think that's the thing, is that Johnny does things in a way that feels like you're well, like maybe not but you know, someone's well-meaning but confused grandfather or uncle or something like that, right? Like and so when you always like have that perspective through him, and then and I think like the earnestness of that, like I obviously remembered the line because it was like it was a big thing. The thing that surprised me rewatching it was how not like how undersold, I suppose, it was delivered in like the perfect way, in that it was very conversational rather than like making a grand metaphor or something.
Yeah, it's very matter of fact the way he said it.
And I think even thinking about like the Roland the cookware joke later, as much as I absolutely like also hate that joke, cringe, rolled my eyes, one of the things that made it work was that he like the way that he delivered that was with such earnestness too. Like he wasn't trying to make a joke. The character wasn't trying to make a joke. He was like, oh yeah, no, I think it's that cookware thing, right? And then we learned like just a few seconds later that he would probably be fine with that if that was what it was too. But so
listen, we know he's into weird stuff.
Yeah.
We've talked all about the little what is it called? The tchotchkes him and Jocelyn have everywhere, the figurines.
Where the figurines go, yeah.
Yeah, look.
They're into bondage at their cabin. Come on.
They're for sure into some stuff. But yeah, I think that the earnestness with which they can express their stuff, whatever that is what the thing that just like I didn't mean to like keep going back to Rolling because this is about David, but just the like earnestness with which everybody is kind of playing their roles is just like one of the things that makes it so lovely and rewatchable. And
it's just refreshing to not see like the normal stereotypical like coming out story, right? Like David's out, he's been out, but it's this like reclarifying for someone new like Stevie and like his dad trying to like wrap his head around all of this. It's really refreshing the way in which they do it, and that it's never shameful, it's never negative, it's just this is what it is. It's very matter of fact.
Yeah, in this situation, it's Stevie the one that is kind of being brought up to speed here. It's not David's kind of like having to explain away. It's Stevie's curiosity that is being piqued, and that Stevie's misunderstanding or misjudgment or prejudgment even that is the thing that is being corrected. And then, as you said, like David says it very matter-of-factly in a very elegant way, but then also sweeps it under the rug almost immediately as if it's a complete non-issue because the clarification is made. It doesn't need to be dwelled on. It's just who they are, and then just goes on with, I think we'll go with this one, it's the biggest. It's just like the analogy just goes away immediately.
Yeah.
What a good like button on that scene. To just like end the metaphor with none of that matters. We're gonna get the wine bottle that's the biggest.
Size matters, you know.
They need to drink through what is coming up though. Like,
exactly.
Yeah. So before we jump over to Ted and Alexis, I want to ask you, Stuart, because you don't know where this is going. I want to know where you think the Stevie and David stuff is going. Right? They're having casual sex currently. We know there's a mirror apparently on the ceiling of that like
the mirror of shame,
awful like honeymoon suite with the silk or satin red sheets, the heart-shaped bed. Where do you think this is all going?
I thought last week this was going to be like a one-off, and at the beginning, like I thought that was going to be the same as well. And then as it went on, and my expectations were completely sideswiped with Stevie's reaction at the end of the dinner party, and then David's reaction to that, I was so on board. I was screaming at my TV from joy because I was just like, yes, they're gonna like not have a go at this. They're just gonna like enjoy each other's company, and they're gonna have fun and whatever like that. And maybe something might blossom from this. But I kind of like what it is gonna be, which is I think just two grown-ups gonna like sort of just see what things happen and stuff like that. I don't think I'm on board with a full like Stevie and David like shipping. I don't think it's I don't know. It's not quite there yet for me if it does become a thing. But I'm excited to see where this does go because by the end of the episode, I was fully on board with their dynamic and it's shifting to this kind of like aspect of just them like fucking around and also just getting each other on a kind of like like non-surface level when it comes to like dinner parties and stuff like that, or at least Stevie getting David, but David not quite getting Stevie just yet.
Yeah, so let's talk about this dinner party. Ted wants to get to know Alexis's friends, but I've watched this episode so many times at this point. JD, is there an ulterior motive to this? Like, is he really most interested in seeing Alexis and Mutt's like dynamic or chemistry together? Is this all a ploy? Should we be thinking of of Ted as a mastermind?
I doubt it. I think that Ted is like really you get what you see out of him. I mean, I like there could be something more. Like I get what you're going at because he's not like he's kind of painted as like an idiot sometimes, and I don't think that he's like as stupid as maybe other characters think that he is, but I think that he is also pretty simple. And so, you know, like I don't know if the guy who buys his rooms already like pre-made from a department store is the guy that's gonna put like that sort of thought into it.
Yes, Stuart, I did ask you last week about Ted's apartment. Now that you know that he purchased the entire thing as like a floor model from a furniture store, thoughts?
I feel so vindicated. Like he got it straight out of the Live Laugh Love catalog. Like, you know that he's happy as anything. I mean, I'm loving seeing this side of Ted, that he, like, dude loves a bargain. Like, and is gonna put in every effort to like kind of squeeze every penny it is. And Ted's living a good life out of it. But I don't think, to your question to JD about like kind of whether or not Ted's masterminding all of this, I think this is purely Alexis being an absolute fiend for drama. Because when she's having the conversation with David, like, and she invites him, it's immediate. It's like, you slept with Stevie. Like, she can't hold it in. She has to express it. Wearing, also, I will note, golden platform heels in their motel, just hanging out.
She's
Like,
just, that's how that's casual, Alexis. Those are casual pumps.
She was in dinner party mode all day. Like, you could tell this was kind of like percolating in her mind and things like that.
She asked him if it was cute for him. Sex with Stevie.
Was it cute for you?
You slept with Stevie, so was it cute for you or what? Can you imagine asking somebody that question?
Yeah, was the sex cute?
But then he says it's good, and then she goes, "I love that," and she says it really honestly. I think she actually does love that.
Oh yeah, she does.
So gassed up for him.
Yeah, she loves that. She loves that David has something going on in his personal life, you know?
Yeah.
But
and
yeah,
then she realizes the drama potential in it.
Yeah. And so we have 3 different couples here, right? And we know there's a little bit of trouble in paradise between Twyla and Mutt, because Mutt tells Alexis, like, oh, he had this dream. And she clarifies, like, listen, dreams and anything over the clothes is not cheating, so you're fine. But obviously they have a bit of a connection, you know, that's not, and Mutt says it would probably be a bad idea for like me to come there, because they feel something. And this party, right? And now this is the second time now where I'm like, Alexis, can we have you define party for us, please? Like, this is not a party. This is a dinner. This is a dinner, not dinner party, dinner. But everyone arrives. It's a little bit awkward. Ted seems very fixated on whatever conversation Mutt and Alexis had. And so, I mean, at the very least, JD, I know you mentioned like Ted's a little simple, and I would agree. Like, he's very straightforward. Yeah. However, at the very least, he's picking up on something going on.
Oh yeah, I don't think that he masterminded it to get them there, but I think that once they're there, he picks up on something going on, and that's like, and to his straightforward is even a better word than simple, although simple might, you know, describe it in some ways. But straightforward is certainly an excellent word to describe him. So like, and he was like, you know, single rail focus, I guess, at that point too. So yeah, what were you talking about?
Yeah, and we were just talking about nightmares, Ted. Like, she just gets so mad. And yeah, it's very awkward, this entire dinner thing. And I don't know, like, Stuart, it just looks like, I love how Ted had like rolls in the microwave. He's like, oh, we're gonna like play some games. I would love to attend a Ted dinner party, honestly. If without all this awkwardness, like, generally speaking. Stuart looks like, no, I would hate it.
I don't know. Like, there's something to like, David had a kind of a neurosis when it came to hosting a games night, that I was kind of here for that energy, because I was like, I love games. I want to play games and things. Ted, on the other hand, I think is a very kind of like happy clappy, we're going to have a lovely time and everyone's going to put on their bravest face while I put hot rolls in the microwave and we play some lovely games. This is going to be the dullest dishwater conversation were it not for Alexis kind of inadvertently stirring the pot and for inviting just the best mix of people. Because if it wasn't for that, this would be the dullest night ever and would be done by 8:30 and I'd be home already. Like bye Ted, thanks for this, bye.
Now I do think
fair.
Alexis had some intent with her. Like I don't know if she invited people as much as she cast that party. You know.
Yeah. And I mean, I think she also can count on Ted to like inadvertently accidentally stir the pot at times, right? When he's talking about the fact that like Stevie and David have slept together and he says these two have, and he sticks his finger through his hand. David says, what an elegant gesture, Ted. It's so funny. Like Ted I think like Ted is a really nice guy, but like socialization wise, like he's not always the best. He's a little awkward. And one of the things I love about him, you know, is just like how much he doesn't really always, especially with the Roses, because they're such a different breed than he is. It doesn't always align, right? Like we find out his entire furniture is like, you know, off the floor model. He ordered the lasagna online. Like all of this stuff is just very specific to Ted in a way that like it's such brilliant story writing that it's like they included that. It's not just a lasagna. No, it's a lasagna he ordered online and it probably came frozen. Like that is Ted, you know?
Would you all buy a room from a department store?
No.
It's like ready made, just drop it in your house.
No.
See, when I was watching it, I thought like I could see that I would do that. If it like, is there a good enough deal that you could get?
It's very bachelor pad in a way that I can. It's very just blank and generic and like modern in a way that feels cold to me.
Yeah. See, you know what I would do? I could see me doing that, but it would have to be like an IKEA showroom. Like, give me at least give me the cheap, colorful stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah,
it'd be interesting to like take Ted around and just be like, look, you can have different types of like living rooms and just see the like kind of different mixtures of IKEAs and stuff. You go into like the vintagey looking one that is actually brand new and everything in there is like, just.
It's hard to find a couch that's not just like gray or black.
Yeah,
or a sofa.
That's true. I have a brown sofa, and sometimes it was hard to find a brown sofa, like because I don't want a black sofa. I want brown, like it's a little warmer, you know. Also, we find out this episode that Ted and Alexis have only been dating for 2 weeks. And like, it feels much more serious than 2 weeks.
Alexis goes fast. I mean, 2 weeks is serious for Alexis.
Yeah,
I think.
Goes, what's your point, David? So good. Anything else we missed from this episode that we haven't already chatted about that either of you want to hit on?
I want to talk about the actual, rather than the kind of bringing together the dinner party, I want to talk about Mutt's behavior at this dinner party. And actually Mutt's behavior in general, because we've been down on Mutt for quite some time. And I thought perhaps maybe this dinner party could be a way in which Mutt could redeem himself. Absolutely not. This episode, Mutt was an absolute piece of shit. First off, he brings up the fact, I've been having like dreams and like, is it cheating if like you dream it and stuff like that? You're bringing this up to the person you had a sex dream about, Mutt. Like, do not do this because you're looking for approval and you're trying to get something to happen. Furthermore, when Twyla brings up a really good story about a hooker marrying one of her Johns, you don't police how she talks and tell her what conversation she can and cannot have.
We want to hear it.
Yes.
You're ruining the fun.
Exactly.
This is exactly how I relate to people too. Not exclusively through stories about hookers. But generally speaking, like, you know, I felt for Twyla in that moment because that's how you be involved in a conversation. As far as I know, you share a story that is similar to what you're talking about, and the conversation is about hookers. She's just being a good dinner party guest.
Yeah, and I like
the only one maybe at this whole party.
Yes. Twyla claps back a little bit too. She's just like, you don't talk all dinner, and now you're telling me I can't talk about Trixie? Like, it's just yeah, it's
I just love
he's just like, oh,
Twyla.
you're saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. It's like, no, you're being I don't like this sort of it's very controlling, right? Like
Yeah.
it's almost like he's embarrassed by Twyla, and that's just not right, you know? It feels bad is the best way I can put it. So I do agree with you, Stuart. Bad look on Mutt. Again, this is the kind of stuff that this is why I don't like Mutt. He's just he first of all, if you're gonna be boring, that's fine. Go off and be boring. Don't make other characters boring with you, Ted. You know, let Twyla talk about Trixie. We want to know. Very upsetting.
Don't bring everybody down around you.
Yeah.
Ted.
Yeah.
And
No, Mutt. Well, yeah, I was gonna say
Sorry, Mutt.
Ted's
whoever.
fine. Yeah, Ted's doing whatever. Ted's just living his life.
Yeah.
Anything else we missed, JD, that you wanted to touch on in this episode?
No, literally the only thing that I had additionally in my notes that we hadn't talked about really was the hooker story. So Stuart brought it up. It was
beautiful.
I was glad.
Well,
and the fact that David threw Kleenex, that his like
throws a tissue as if that's gonna David, throw the whole box.
Yeah. That just cracked me up very early on. Just throwing a tissue. My
single
goodness.
tissue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get into some feedback. We got a question from Jared. Have any of you ever been walked in on by parents or anybody else? I can luckily say no to that question. Basically, he's asking because Johnny, he didn't exactly walk in on Stephen and David, but he did discover them, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, near enough. Like,
yeah,
walked in around.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, I've gotten like walked in on, not like assuming the position, but like on the way to assuming the position. What a weird way to put that. Yep. Not by my parents, thank God. Good God. That would be one of those things that just, it's like glitter. It just never leaves your brain. It's just like there forever. Thank God. I would be scarred for life, I think. What about you two?
I haven't, thankfully, but the end of this episode with the whole conversation with like Moira saying about like kind of we can't afford a podunk baby kind of thing.
Yes.
Kind of had that situation where I was just 18, still in with parents, and I was like, oh, can so and so stay over tonight? And got a text back from mum going, yeah, just be careful. And me being a naive little dick just went, what do you mean? And then
I just got back. That, Stuart?
I know. I
regret it. That.
It hurts. It hurts. And I just got back. I think you know. I was like, oh God. No.
Yeah, track that cycle, Missy. What about you, JD?
No, well, so I don't think so, though there is something like itching in my brain that's like, did you block something out? Because
your brain is very kind if you did. Yeah,
my brain could be very kind. I do remember something when I was about 19 years old or so. I was dating a person, and my mom was also dating a person, like not the same person.
That would be a dinner party conversation.
Yeah.
Throw out the whole podcast. Let's dig in on this, please.
Yeah. And my mom and their person broke up, and her person broke up. And I remember I was sitting in my room. My mom comes into my room and tosses a half box of condoms at me and says, well, I don't think I need these anymore. So if maybe you can.
Oh, I hate that for you. That's so sad and so awkward simultaneously.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, God, brutal. So brutal. Wow. Yeah, awful.
So if that is in my memories and something worse has been blocked out, then I'll just say thank you to my brain. And
we also got a really lovely comment on our YouTube channel. I'm loving this podcast. Thank you for bringing so much to an already amazing show. That was from Katie. So thank you, Katie. Thank you for commenting.
Thank you.
We love it. If you want to leave ratings, We would love 5-star ratings. So you should definitely do that. Or you could leave us little comments or feedback. We have an email, podcast@talkingschitt. You can find us on all social media @talkingschitt if you want to give us any feedback. Now it's time to do some ratings here. So JD, we give out an MVP point and an LVP point every episode. Our MVP is called Simply the Best. Stuart won't know what that means for a very long while. But JD, who do you think was simply the best this episode?
I think I gotta say it's Alexis for her ability to just really stir up the drama in what would have otherwise been a completely unnoteworthy dinner party.
Okay, Stuart, what about you? Who was simply the best?
I'm ignoring, as per usual. Always comes down to a couple of people. I wanted to give it to David for like the just eloquent way in which summarized everything, but I've got to give it to Stevie for getting out of an awkward dinner party with just the best acting ever, and then she just play it off as if it's nothing.
Yeah, I was torn as well between David and Stevie, but ultimately I landed on like, well, Stevie's the one that asks the question that prompts the analogy, so she's also involved in the analogy. And the acting and getting out of that dinner party was just like, mwah, chef's kiss to Stevie. And the fact that she was so cool and relaxed about the entire thing, right? Like, not that she wouldn't have been cool if she like somehow caught feelings for David or something, but like, I just loved the way she handled everything. You know, she just like, oh, now that you have the explanation on pansexuality, I'm good. I'm cool. I loved that from Stevie. So I'm also giving Stevie my simply the best point. So 2 points for Stevie this episode.
Those are good choices. Also, I just kind of generally love Alexis. So
yeah, who doesn't?
You know, I'm gonna take my shot and give her the thing while I'm on the podcast.
Why
not? Yeah.
Next up is the disgruntled pelican, which is the LVP of this episode. JD, who are you thinking is the LVP of this episode?
I think that I think it's gotta be, it sounds like it's gotta be Mutt, I think is what, you know, he was the shit and not in the good way, like your podcast name.
Yeah.
He was a shit, not the shit.
Exactly. Stuart, what about you?
I think it'd be a little strange if I didn't give it to Mutt after my little rant. Yeah, it's got to be Mutt.
Yeah, Mutt is getting 3 LVP points for just stifling the drama, ruining a dinner party, and just generally being a butthead. Like, seriously, Mutt, you suck. If you like Alexis, that's fine. Just break up with Twyla and tell Alexis you like her. Don't do this nonsense. Have you ever had a dream where you cheated? Stop it. I hate that. There's nothing more I hate than a wishy-washy nonsense person who like just doesn't say what they feel. And Mutt is kind of the epitome of that, and it's very annoying.
Yeah.
So he sucks, and I'm getting him an
LVP. He's so handsome, but like
it's the beard.
It's the only thing that he just knows how to be is handsome at this point. It seems he has nothing else about him.
You know how you could be like dickmatized? It's almost like people get like bearditized by his beard, you know? Like it's just hypnotizing. It's so full and good that it's just like you can't see anything else but that beautiful beard.
Yeah.
Are we sure it's real?
I think
we have to enter this beard into Wig Watch.
Oh no. What if it's not real? Horrifying.
Is there a specific name for a beard wig? Like they have a name for a pubic wig.
Yeah, I was
not
say
for
there's
a beard
wig, but there's there's a beard one.
I've never heard it. If there is one,
face merkin. That's what we'll call
face merkin. Great, a firkin.
A firkin.
10 out of 10. Firkin rules. So we are going to do wig watch today because we did get a Moira wig. Let's talk about Maureen. Maureen is who she wears to the Hawaiian barbecue dinner party. Stuart, what do you think of Maureen?
Love her. She looks to be the amalgamation of a wig stuck on another wig to get a little bit more height in there. Two-tone. She doesn't like to be manhandled. Maureen knows who she is, and I love her for it.
Yeah, JD, what do you think of this wig? This like it's like a like a very short bob with some very blunt bangs. Very Moira.
Yeah. It's I think to Stuart's point, it feels like two Sia wigs stacked on top of each other with the
Instead of
bang
side by
trim.
side.
Yes.
And I love it for that.
Yeah, it really does complete the
have that
ensemble.
height. Yeah, it really, really does. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
they're in
black and
all
white.
white.
It's
yeah.
it's perfect.
Yeah, and I think it's Roland who says like, "Oh, Johnny, you shouldn't have come in that all white suit. I just want to rub my hands all over you."
And then he gets so earnest about it again. Is like, no, I really want to though.
Yeah.
He's very tempted.
It's just upsetting.
But the best fact is that Maureen does not like to be manhandled, which we can all appreciate, respect her boundaries. Let's get into
the first named wig.
No, because when in the pilot, when they're packing up all her wigs, she's giving like tons of names, but this is the first since then. Which I know, Stuart, you must have been very happy about because you wanted more names for the wigs.
Yeah, I want there to be an exhaustive catalogue of all of Moira's wigs and their names and what their personalities are like. I really like the idea that they are like other characters to this show. So I'm hoping that we get more going forward.
We need to contact Dan Levy and get a spreadsheet or something because we need to know,
I wonder if he exists.
That's gotta exist.
It has to be, right? Has to be.
Yeah.
It's time to tier rank this episode. We have, again, if you want to watch us on YouTube, I have a visual component for this. The top of the list, of course, is Hot Shit, then Full Bouquet, Love That Journey for Me, Ew, David, and Shit Out of Luck. Stuart, do you have any gut instincts on where you think Honeymoon belongs? In which category Honeymoon belongs?
I rated this one quite high. This one really tickled me. Part of me was tempted to chuck it into Full Bouquet, but if not Full Bouquet, then it's certainly one of the better episodes. So, like, on the upper end of the scale of Love That Journey for me at the very least.
JD, any inclination on where you would put this?
Okay, so I'm gonna be annoying now and get into your criteria.
Please. Yes.
So obviously Hot Shit is the best. Is the best. Now, how are these like? I guess you're trying to leave room for
correct.
Things
for the
to
best
grow,
of the best.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. I think that this is definitely in the Full Bouquet category for me, especially from the first season. Like, I'm not sure if there was something as iconic as like the Wine Not the Label that Stuart won't have any real context for, other than just like feeling how good that is. And it's like the first time you see it, you could feel like, oh, that's going to be a thing. But yeah, I don't know if there was anything from the show that really like took off or that made me feel the feels that way either before now. So I go in the Full Bouquet area.
That's where I was leaning as well. I was leaning on maybe like Below the Cabin, but still in Full Bouquet, because I think it has a lot of things going for it, right? The way I usually assess these, JD, is like I think about each storyline and how much I enjoyed them, right? Like, love the Hawaiian barbecue night. Love that entire storyline. Obviously, I love the David and Stevie Wine Not the Label conversation. And the Ted and Alexis dinner party is so delightfully awkward and such a disaster that I love all three aspects. So for me, that already is going to bump it above like an average episode. And then you put in the fact that we have this Wine Not the Label conversation and the meta-ness of it, and like how perfect of an analogy it is and how people use it in their everyday life. Like, it's so lovely and wonderful. How can you not? And on top of that, I mean, the roses get high. Like, you gotta love that, like what's not to love? So I think I would lean at putting it in Full Bouquet, just below the Cabin, because the Cabin is just, I just love the Cabin so much. It'd be hard for me to rank it above that.
Yeah, I think the Cabin came in harder with a lot better and funnier, like big hearty jokes. Whereas this, I think, is a good spread of everything we want, like good writing, good character work, some good laughs. Like, Track That Cycle, Missy is one of the funniest lines Moira has said in this entire season. we get them, like you say, the getting high of it all, but also we get a little backstory as well, don't we? We get like Moira when she's talking to Jocelyn. It's like, what if I didn't ask who's the eyebrows buying everyone's drinks? Like that's how she met Johnny. I was like, ah,
yeah. It is
Love how
great.
casually they just drop that stuff in.
Yeah. There are a lot of great. We get also the one thing I haven't quoted yet, which I don't know how I haven't, is Johnny saying we got to think with our hearts, not our
parts.
It's so funny. It's so good. So yeah, I think let's leave. Let's put Honeymoon in full bouquet beside the cabin, just below it, and that's going to be our second full bouquet episode. So that's incredible. We have 3 episodes left in this season, and yeah, I think this makes sense to me that like the majority of the episodes are average in season 1 because like the show builds up. I mean, everyone has said it. It just gets better from here. So very exciting.
Yeah, I don't necessarily feel like it really, like, I know I very much respect the folks who found it to be a rougher start. I didn't have that experience, but it does grow for me. It's just like, basically it's just whatever your baseline is, it's going to grow from there. So
it's like a rose. It just grows and it blooms.
Oh, a rose. Like a rose growing out of a pot of shit.
There you go. So that's that episode. Next week, the title of the next episode, Stuart, is Little Sister.
Little Sister. Could be Johnny or Moira's, maybe. Maybe an aunt is visiting.
Maybe an aunt is visiting. An aunt.
I don't think there's a third sibling.
Who? What do you mean? Oh,
there's
like
a
David
Alexis.
Alexis.
It's not David Alexis and another. Yeah, no. So maybe an aunt.
Okay, well, we'll see. We'll have to wait until next week for season 1, episode 11. So make sure you join us. Don't forget to subscribe on We're Talking Shit everywhere. That's talking without the G and SCHITT, like the show. And watch us on YouTube. Give us reviews. We appreciate it. We love all the comments and feedback we get. It's so exciting and so lovely. In the meantime, you could hear me over on Shit 90 Shows Taught Me talking about Buffy, talking about Felicity. Felicity cut her hair and it looks horrible and we're all sad about it, but it's okay. Listen, people can do whatever they want with their hair, but it doesn't look good.
They can do whatever they want, but like don't do those. Don't do the bad. No.
And also very soon you're going to be able to hear me talking about Pretty Little Liars, Original Sin, Summer School. We need a lot of colons in the title of this name over on Whirlwind Podcasts. Sarah and I are joining back together to cover that show. It's going to be a ton of fun. So go check me out there as well. JD, where can people find you and what do you got going on?
I am occasionally talking some video game media stuff on Arcade Pizza Podcast, which is at arcade.pizza, which is a web address that I absolutely love. And otherwise I'm out there on the socials and stuff at JDBug for now, JADEYBUG4NOW.
Incredible.
And yeah, just chilling, talking shit.
Yes, excellent. Stuart, anything you want to plug? Anything else you have going on?
Nothing to plug, but yeah, just socials, Stuart Drinks Tea, and yeah, check out Arcade Pizza. It's really fun to see what JD and Corey are up to on there.
Yes. All right, well, we'll be back next week to cover season 1, episode 11, Little Sister. And until then, you better track that cycle, Missy. Bye.
Bye.